Okay. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I just want to give a special thanks to Mr. President of the American Ecuadorian Chamber of Commerce, NICOLAS Trujillo, and former ambassador for Ecuador in South Korea. I know you're a busy person, and thank you for being here. I want to thank again also to Darío Herrera. He is a vice president for business and investments for Montecristi Golf. And also I want to thank to Mark Bradbury. He is Mark, I don't know if you can hear us, but he will be talking from the perspective from the expats living here in Ecuador. Thank you, Mark, for turning on your camera. And also we have with us Jason Hench, who has been helping us in the past as moderator. Jason has been living here in Ecuador for 12 years. He knows very well what is the situation here in Ecuador, and he's a great asset for us here to help us with the questions that we're going to have. So this is how we're going to be working with this presentation. This is a talk that we want to have with people who are decision makers in Ecuador. We want your experience. We want your opinion about what is happening in Ecuador. Because of this pandemic, some of us, and especially the expats living here in Ecuador, sometimes, well, they don't know what's going on. We have different curfew laws. We have regulations that they are very fast, and most of the time it is hard to find the information. For that reason, we would like to have your opinion, your view about what is happening in Ecuador, the perspective about the country, especially we know that in some areas in Ecuador, especially in Guayas, we have a big problem right now, but Ecuador is here, and for that reason, thank you again for accepting this invitation. And I would like to start with NICOLAS. If NICOLAS, you please can give us your perspective about what is happening in Ecuador right now.
Thank you, Marcos. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, very good. Well, first, thank you, Marcos, for organizing this conversation, this dialogue. It's very nice to meet fellow panelists that I haven't had the pleasure to have met before. Thank you also for your time. Well, Marcos, you know, we're living in unprecedented times. So we're in a situation right now that, at least on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce and the Organization of Commerce throughout Ecuador, we're sending out a message of serenity, a message of solidarity. We're going through a very difficult situation, as everybody knows, and it's a different level of difficulty for many, depending on the resources with which they can deal with this situation. It's going to take solidarity, and it's going to take creativity in order for us to withstand the situation, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. What the Chambers of Commerce are trying to help to do right now is to save lives. We need to save lives first, and we also need to worry about saving employment. There are some predictions that we're going to have more downfall because of the economic implications of this versus the disease itself. So we're working hard to try to figure out what steps the private sector and the public sector can take together in order to, mitigate seems like too soft a word, in order to try to have a united front against this situation. So the chambers of commerce are asking for some tax relief in order for whatever liquidity they have to be used toward paying salaries. The biggest challenge that many of us see here in Ecuador isn't necessarily the pandemic, but the implications socially that this is going to have. And one of the biggest challenges that we have right now is feeding people that are in a vulnerable state, as they like saying here in Spanish, vulnerable, which is not only children and homeless people, but we have a lot of folks that live on the fringe economies, the people that come to your car on the streets and try to sell you something. Those people don't have a contingency plan. If they had any savings, those savings are gone. So what we're doing also from the organized food drives, and we're trying to act, the old saying, cliche or not, act locally, think globally. We're trying to figure out how locally we can keep people fed around Manta, around MANABI, and it starts with the guards around the urbanizaciones, and it starts with the neighbors that we know maybe senior citizens and difficulty getting. So, there's a strong message of solidarity right now that it's reverberating throughout the sector, and how we can be good corporates and not only do the right thing because it's the right thing, but also because it's necessary in order to avoid greater social turmoil, which unfortunately, I think may be around the corner if we don't take aggressive action in feeding people that really need our help. So I don't want to keep going. I want to hear what the other panelists have to say. And again, thank you, Marcos, for creating this forum for the conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Nicolas. At the end of the presentation of each panelist, we're going to have a session for questions for everyone who is attending. So please, Darío, if you can continue with your perspective about what's going on. And thank you, Nicolas, for your appreciation of the situation right now.
Well, thank you, Marco, for the invitation. I want to check, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. And thank you, Nicolas and Mark and Jason. I'm fortunate to know you all. I've had conversations with you before, and I thank you for being here in this panel. I couldn't agree more with Nicolas. As a matter of fact, we have been talking in the previous weeks. I am also a director in the Ecuadorian American Chamber of Commerce in MANABI under NICOLAS guidance as a president. And we're working on trying to figure out what are the urgent steps that we need to take in order to attack those problems that are really the greatest concern right now. As Nicolas said, the pandemic is it's very difficult to deal with. However, people not having food on their tables, it's more of a risk in the very short future, very short time. Just to give you some numbers so that you understand, so that we get a global or Ecuadorian context on this problem is, as a difference in, unlike other countries, our country doesn't have any savings. So we don't have any money to inject into the economy. Peru has $50–60 billion worth of reserves. We have not even $3 billion. And you can't take that away because then the dollarization, it's literally gone. So you have no money, and then you use the dollar, which is a very hard currency right now. So you can't play with monetary adjustments in order to improve your exports. You can't export, so you don't have no money coming in. Oil price dropped down to $20. We're losing money exporting oil. And on top of that, you have a very politically conflicted country at the brink of elections next year. And our productive sector has always been geared towards just feeding or producing for local consumption and not with the necessary incentives for exports. So you have no money coming in. So this is three things working together as a cycle, as a vicious cycle. You can't get out of it. Okay, so it's not only that the companies can't produce, or they don't practice solidarity with their employees. I mean, they just can't. Eventually, they won't be able to pay salaries. Okay, so just think of this number. Guayaquil has 3 million people. Okay, 800,000 of those 3 million people have to go out. They have to go out every day in order to sell something to bring to their families to feed. That's the reality. Okay, so if you can grasp that, you know, they don't have credit card. There's no credit card there. There's nothing. They have to go out and sell something, service, you know, whatever, in order to bring money to feed their families. So when you think about that, is how can we ask these people to stay at home for 3 weeks or a month? Okay, so that's the reality. Okay, and in that proportion, probably in MANABI, in Manta, Montecristi, any town, you're going to have the same amount of people, 40–50% of the people that need to go out to sell something, to produce something in order to take that money and feed their families. So that's really what we're up against here. Okay, and as far as the government, with this I'll conclude. Yes, they're changing the rules and regulations every time. I guess what we can contribute is from the private sector is try to translate or share this information with you as we know it. That we can do. But then again, you know, it's just they can't handle it. And there's no country that has been able to handle it really well. Okay, developed, underdeveloped, it doesn't matter. I mean, just health system is going to collapse. Everything is going to collapse. You know, and right now all you have to do is stay at home until this thing happens, and then it finishes. So that's basically what you have. You know, in Ecuador, it's going to be more affected because of the fact, as I told you, there's no reserves. Okay, there's an economy very fragile. Okay, so but eventually at the end you always have to give hope, and the hope is countries don't go bankrupt by theory because they have unlimited resources, and they have one resource that we have to be proud of, and the only resource that we have is us, the people, Ecuadorians. You know, we are very creative. We react, and it's also one thing, smaller countries can react to these sort of problems more quickly than very large countries. Okay, so that I put on the table as a contribution to this panel. Thanks.
Thank you, Darío. It is very, very important, all the information you just gave us, but also it is very important if we have the opinion from the expat community. So I just want to remind everyone that you can type your questions. So, but for now, we will have Mark. Mark, please. I know you are been living here in Ecuador for more than 4 years, and you are very, very active with the expat community, doing a great job communicating to people about what's going on, what is happening right now. So I know you receive a lot of questions from the expats, especially from MANABI. Also, I want to remind you, Nicolás and Darío, that we have here some investors, some people that they have been investing here in Ecuador, from Puerto Cabello to Bahía, you know? So yeah, please, Mark, if you can help us with your perspective and from the opinion from the expat community.
Okay. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you perfect.
Okay. I think that the expat situation, good afternoon, gentlemen, by the way, and everybody on board. I I think the situation with the expat population here in Manta, in MANABI, and probably anywhere else in Ecuador is a little different, certainly, than what it is for the average person that lives here. Most of us are here, we're on pensions, we're retirement, we've got investments, that sort of thing. So economically, financially, we're not going to be affected as much as the average person here in Ecuador. I mean, that goes without saying. Most of us are comfortable here, certainly more comfortable than we might be in the United States or Canada or any other country. So we have a different perspective, I think. You know, people are more worried about how they can get a taxi when they go shopping, and you know what drugstores are going to be open, and what you need to do, that sort of thing. Because a lot of us are older. A lot of us depend on the fact that we're close by the mall, or that we're close by Paseo, or we're close by other things that we need. And that's, I think, our biggest concern is not obeying the law, because I think most of us are. I think the biggest concern for all of us is how do we get what we need, you know, to keep on keeping on, basically, here. And that's, I think, in the course of a day on my page, in Facebook here, the local page, you know, we get question after question, sometimes very often the same questions. And again, it's not how am I going to eat, but, you know, how am I going to get here? How am I going to get there? What can I do? When can I drive? That sort of thing. So there's a different perspective, certainly a different feeling. But what I'm seeing evolving from the expat group here lately is that I'm seeing more of them wanting to step up, more of them wanting to get involved with giving money, time, effort, whatever, to local groups that are feeding poor people, that are feeding kids, they're helping people with medicines. I'm starting to see a lot of that now, in generating in my group and in other groups. And that makes me feel very good, because we're all in a position where we can help, and we certainly should if we can. Not everybody can just dig in and pay, but if you can, you know, I would encourage people, and I do as much as I can, encourage people to try to help, because we know that there's people all around us here that are not in good shape at all. There are people that don't know what they're going to eat for dinner, and never mind tomorrow. If they don't get out, like Dario said, and they don't get out and sell what they do. Fishermen don't sell their fish. Fruit growers don't sell their fruit. They don't have money to eat. And I think a North American perspective certainly is. And when I first came here, I had a friend who owned a restaurant, and she was an Ecuadorian woman. And she owned a restaurant, and every morning she would go to the restaurant with about $2 in her pocket, because whatever she made the day before, she took home with her. She took home and fed her kids. And so the next morning I would say to her, what if somebody comes in with a $20 bill? What do you do? Well, what she did was she ran around Montecristi to try to find somebody that could help get her change, because she couldn't afford to have $20 in change in her pocket. And I think that's indicative of the more than average Ecuadorian citizen that's out there working on the streets every day. I think we need to help them. We need to be aware of their situation. You know, really, to me, that's probably the most important thing. So we need to be aware of the situation of people around us, and continue doing what we've been doing. I think for the most part, I go to Mega Maxi, I see half the expat crowd in Manta. We're all there getting their things, and you know, I go once a week, and you know, it's people are trying to do the right thing for the most part, and I congratulate everybody that is doing the right thing, and hopefully we get through this thing all right, and help your neighbors if you can. That's really my message.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's very, very important to hear, because basically the purpose of this is to try to get in contact with decision makers, with people that they know sometimes a little bit more of what's happening on the news, what the news or the social media are telling us, because there's so many rumors out there. So the people that we have today here, I mean, I trust them, and also I would like to have Jason, your opinion about this, because you are an expat here, living in Ecuador for 12 years. Just if you can give us an input on how do you see the situation based, because also you have the experience that you work in the flower market, and what you can tell us about what is happening, at least for you right now.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Marcos, and to my fellow panelists, thank you for your contributions. And I think you guys all had very well thought out information to provide, and I definitely agree with a lot of things you said. Like Marcos mentioned, I work in an industry here in Ecuador that's very prevalent. We export cut flowers, especially from the Andes. Ecuador is a big player in the global cut flower trade. Now, unfortunately, since the vast majority of the product that we sell is sold internationally, and with the basic standstill on international planes, whether cargo or commercial, our industry is at a standstill. It is severely affected, and it's going to take quite a while for us to get back to full capacity. So there's going to be a large effect felt there, unfortunately. The cut flower industry in the Andes is similar to the commercial fishing industry here in Manta. There's a lot of people that are either directly or secondarily employed throughout the industry. So it's going to be a challenge moving forward. But like Darío mentioned, I think one of Ecuador's biggest commodities is the goodwill, the ingenuity, and the creativity of their population. So I think once we can get back to work, we will do just that and try to get back whole as quickly as possible.
Thank you. What I personally see here, it is that as Ecuador, we have a big opportunity and we have a big challenge too, because this is how I personally see it. This is like the world, like press the button to reset the economy. So there are some economies that they have their savings and they probably can handle this situation better, but we have challenges ahead of us. And I think it is very important, the contributions that based on the leadership of for example, the Chamber of Commerce here in Ecuador, the American Chamber of Commerce. What challenges are we facing right now in order to get back to the economy? I'm not just saying about the tourism, the expat population, because if we have our community surrounding us happy with incomes, the security, education, just simple like the taxi driver, they don't want to charge $3 when they're supposed to be charging $1.25. Just little things like that at the end of the day will affect Ecuador as a country and being competitive with other countries. For example, Colombia, they want to take our business and the expat community. Of course, Mexico, Panama, but they don't have the peace that we have here in Ecuador, just to give an example for Colombia. So what will be the challenges for the Ecuadorian American Chamber of Commerce, NICOLAS, after all this happens, or what we should be doing right now in order to put together all the efforts and at some point try to be in a better place than the rest of the countries?
Marcos, like Darío said at the beginning of his intervention, this country very difficult economic situation before the pandemic started. There are a number of challenges, structural challenges to Ecuador's economy, and one of which we could not say in the fact that we cannot use inflation in order to bolster our economy. The U.S. is dealing with a $2 trillion aid package, and they're debating that it's not going to be enough. Here in Ecuador, we have ability, and it's absolutely not going to be enough. So there are serious fundamental challenges that we have with the dollarized economy, with the fact that we can't devaluate the value of our products. You're talking about Colombia. You can use Peru and their sol as an example also, but we have some really serious structural challenges that we need to overcome, and it's going to take time and it's going to take effort. And there's going to be some businesses, Darío knows this very well, some businesses that are going to take longer than others to recover. You know, in every situation, there's opportunities for entrepreneurs. I think there's a lot of people setting up disinfection companies right now here in Manta. You know, tourism is going to be a challenge. We know tourism is going to be a challenge. With Darío, we're coming up with some strategies of how we can try to help on a business side, try to use those blessings that you talk about Ecuador having, but we need to stabilize the patient first. You know, the whole world is in shock right now, and we're still in the middle of this. You know, we're not seeing the light yet at the other side of the tunnel, and we lost sight of the light behind us already. So we just need to persevere. We need to keep going. We need to be human. We need to take care. You know, one thing that we're doing is we're buying a little extra food every time we go to the store to drop off to our more, you know, our more older neighbors in the neighborhood, so they don't have to go out as much. So I think we've got to work together as a community. We got to do everything we can from a personal level, but on a corporate level and on a macro society level, we're still in the middle of the fight.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with your assessment of the situation, because it is hard. Well, it's a challenge. So we will see what the times brings. And Darío, recently Montecristi signed an agreement with Universidad San Francisco. This will bring education for the province in MANABI. What others business or what others new projects are coming to MANABI from, of course, from your perspective, that at least, because as I said before, we have some investors here that the most information that we can help to when everything finished, that keeping everyone informed about what is happening here will help us to be in a good position as a country and as a province here in MANABI.
Oh, can you hear me? Okay. Thank you, Marco. Yes, let me see if I can answer that. At this point, going on our 4th week in the quarantine, everything is not really clear as to what and when things are going to start moving again. Okay, we know that industries like tourism, real estate development are going to be affected the most. Anything that has to do with traveling, large social gatherings, all that's banned. In our group of companies, we belong to the Fabril group. And first, as you may have heard, we were affected directly by this pandemic our president and leader, Mr. Carlos Gonzalez, passed away a couple days ago, last Saturday. And that's an incredible shock to the whole organization. However, after a couple of days of mourning, you can't just sit still. You have to move forward. You have to move forward, and that's what we're doing. We have 144 employees at the golf course as a project: real estate, restaurants, events, golf. We have shifted most of these people right now to aid La Fabril in their goal to produce more detergent and food for Ecuador. La Fabril provides probably products that fill up 6% of what people buy in Ecuador. We have products there that you probably don't even know that La Fabril makes. So we have to keep that company going. You know, unlike what people say that they're working, that there's a crowd of people that they should be working. No, you can't do that. You have to have that company and all the companies that produce food, they need to be working. Okay, so we shifted towards that. Now, let me just share a few things that we have done so that the people that are in this webinar can share to their families. It is La Fabril, for example, is taking care of all their employees, providing a cleaning kit for their families per week. You know, a basket of food per week to their families, to everybody that is working right now under this pandemic. We made a health map and gather information not only on the employees, but on everybody that lives with these employees in their houses to see how healthy they are. Now think about this. It's 6,000 plus, you know, how many people, okay? So we've created an app to do this. Our conversations, our meetings start with, how are you? How is your health? Not how the numbers are. Forget about the numbers, you know. It doesn't matter whether you lose money or make money this year. It doesn't make any difference, okay? It's, how are you? Are you healthy? Okay? And that we are extending to our families and doing to other businesses as well. So there are thoughts about what can happen, you know, like real estate and construction in Ecuador should be should be considered a priority sector, just like food. Why? Because it's the easiest way to put a lot of dollars into a lot of hands in the community. Okay, and just think about it. I guess there is more space between people building a house than there is people working at a supermarket or anywhere else, okay, or at a tuna company, okay? So the chance of getting the virus in that environment is going to be less, and you can also take all the sanitary precautions to do so. So we are pushing through the different construction chambers and associations of promoters of real estate in the country, that the government can consider construction as a priority sector and allow, under the sanitary regulations, allow these people to go back to work, okay, so that they can take some money to the families, okay? But then again, as you said, Marcos, it's a reset button. Some industries are going to recover a lot faster, some others are not, and you have to be very creative. My father used to say that the king of the animal kingdom is not the lion, is the cockroach, because the cockroach can adapt and it can survive. So we have to adapt. That's what we need to do now. Okay. So and that's my advice to everyone, and to even to the expats that are listening. You know, be a chameleon, be a cockroach. You know, adapt. Okay. Thank
you, Darío. Thank you so much. Mark, I want to continue with Mark. Mark, well, you know, the expat community, it is a very important source of income for the country. We have important business like the flower business, the tuna business, oil, but the expat cash coming from Social Security, it helps to the local economy. To the lady who's coming to helping cleaning the house, if you go into the supermarket, or if you go into the little tienda, or to the taxista, how do you see first the expat community getting involved with Ecuador economic reconstruction, to put it just a name, and how this will be affected Ecuador, how this will be affecting Ecuador as a country after everything what I'm seeing on the news, Washington Post, New York Times, they're talking about Guayas, and you probably have family or friends in the US asking what is happening in Ecuador. Are you safe living down there? So how do you see that? So those two questions I have for you before we start with the questions that Jason has as well.
Okay. Can you hear me okay? Yes, okay. I think to answer your first question, as far as the expats go, I think we'll be on board immediately, if not before. I think that we'll be out there in force, going to restaurants, going shopping, doing the things that we've always done. Because I think people are just ready for the whistle to blow. And that's not going to happen today or tomorrow. But I think when it does, the expat community is going to get out there and go to the restaurants and go to the services and do all the things that we've always done, because that's part of living here for us. We didn't come here to do all our own stuff. We came here to relax, retire, do the things that we want to do. So, I'm cooking dinner 7 nights a week for the past 4 weeks, and damn, I'm ready for some new food somewhere, I'm ready to go out. I can't, but I'm ready. And I think a lot of people will tell you the same thing. People in our groups, every day say, God, I wish I could go out and, have a drink and get a great dinner. We all feel that way. And I think that you'll see almost an instant gratification, if you will, from all of us. I think we'll get out right away and support the economy again. I don't think that'll be a problem long term or short term for that matter. Excuse me. I just see that happening quickly. I think we'll all do that. As far as the other question, I've had friends in New York, friends from the Boston area, friends from literally all over the United States send me messages the past few days after them having seen what's going on in Guayaquil and everything. And I've had these friends call me and say, hey, are you okay? What's going on there? Are you all right? Are you safe? It just accelerated just in the last couple of days. And I tell them the same thing. I said, yes, I'm fine right now. I'm doing what we're supposed to do as often as I can. But I think that I explained to them Guayaquil and Guayas province is 4 hours south of us here. It's the epicenter, if you will, of the country. And, it's a place that I certainly don't want to go to. Others have chosen to go to the airport, fly out, go home, only to go to maybe a worse situation. I feel very comfortable here. Most of the expats, I think, that are here, that stayed here, feel more comfortable here than they would if they went home. I'm hearing that from a lot of people. The initial reaction from some was, oh, I'm so glad to be home. Well, okay, I understand that. They want to be with their families. They want to be in comfortable, familiar surroundings, if you will. But I think those of us who stayed here and are here, I think we're happier. We feel safer. And Guayaquil, for a lot of us, is close, but it's a long ways away, and we hope it stays that way. And we certainly empathize and sympathize with people in Guayaquil. It's a terrible, terrible thing that they're going through. My partner's uncle is very bad. He's in Guayaquil. Her daughter lost her grandmother. Her father's infected. I mean, this is happening, folks, and it's not going away. So I think for all of us, and Dario, my sympathies. When a man like Dario's boss, former partner, when somebody like that dies, somebody so well known, it should wake everybody up. But unfortunately, it hasn't. And I think we have to keep, as a group, we have to keep focusing on making people aware of, what they need to do so that we can all get through this and go back to living. Basically, I've probably over answered the question, but anyhow.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was great. It was great. Thank you, Mark. But you mentioned about the airport in Guayaquil. So, which brings me the question that we have this conversation with on our last time when we have a presenter and speaker from the Ministry of Tourism about the airport in Manta. And I know Nicolas and Dario, they were representatives for COPA last year. And right now, out of that discussion was, okay, Guayas, they have their airport, but what if we take this as an opportunity to have the airport in Manta? Then we can fly out from Manta. That will be an option for people living in this area who they would like to avoid going to Guayaquil, because
Absolutely.
this is not going to end very soon, and probably there are some expats that are seniors that they don't want to put themselves in risk. So why not having this option for everyone in Ecuador, just flying out from Manta?
I totally agree. I think that most of the expat community here strongly favors having an international availability out of Manta here. I think Dario certainly knows that. I think he's seen that, and you've had polls and questionnaires. I don't think there's any question that the expat community would not support the airport on an international basis. I think we'd all love to fly out of there. I think it's a perfect opportunity for all of us. We all hope that it happens. I don't think there's anybody that doesn't want to see that happen. I think we're all anxious to see it happen. So guys, make it happen. You the guys that are working on it, make it happen. Bring COPA, bring everybody. Let's get this thing going. Let's get our province back on track, and let's go out to dinner. The fat guy said.
Thank you, Mark. Jason, I don't know if you have any questions or if we just continue with this, but Jason, I think you might have some questions right now from the audience.
Yeah, definitely, Marcos. I can relay some of the questions that we have received from the audience, so we can jump right into that. I'm going to go in order, in the order they were received, and for whatever reason, if we run out of time or don't get to all of them, I know that Marcos and his team at EcuaAssist will provide responses after today's roundtable. So first question, it looks like this person is currently not in Ecuador, and they are asking, as a property owner, are they allowed to return from Canada, which is where they're currently located, to Ecuador and come back to their property?
Well, I had the same question today with one of our clients in Cotacachi. So right now there is the order from the government that they only are authorizing to the elderly, kids, pregnant to come back, and so far we don't know what will happen. We're working on trying to have an answer from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We're trying to get an answer from them, because this is not the first case, and hopefully we will have an answer for that, or hopefully we can have a person from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs coming to this meeting as well. So I don't know if anyone else knows about Okay. All right. Jason, the next question, please.
Okay. All right, moving forward. This question is specifically for Darío, but if anyone else wanted to offer their opinion, they're more than welcome to do so. But question for Darío. If you had an audience with the president of Ecuador or other government leaders, what 3 specific items would you recommend in order to mitigate the economic crisis that we're facing during COVID-19 and post-COVID-19?
Oh, that's a difficult question. Wow, I'm not an economic analyst. I can share my view, however, right at the top of my mind, what I would ask. Number one, it would be the government has to be responsible and has to limit its expending. We have such a big government with expenses right now that for our economy, it's just out of the question. In the last 10 years, when the former President Herrera was in power, at the beginning there was a numbers, I believe it was like 1 or 2 public servants for every 10 or 100, I believe, Ecuadorians. That went triple, 4 times, and with that went all the spending. Okay, so we have a very obese government. That's number one. Number two, regulations. Ecuador is still a very difficult country to start a business. There are 120,000 or 150,000 laws in all the laws combined. And if you ask a lawyer, they might tell you that for every law, there might be another law that contradicts that law. That's how obscure that area, that arena is. So sometimes you start a business and, down the path, because we have experienced this, you get all these obstacles and it's just impossible to do. You have to be the government has to allow entrepreneurship to flourish, but the real way, I mean, not just saying, okay, it has to provide that environment so that the creativity of Ecuadorians can flourish. Once I heard a long time ago, a Chilean businessman. Chile, it's a country almost considered a developed country, and one of the businessmen said, I don't know how you Ecuadorians, Dario, I don't know how come you're not rich. You should be rich. And I asked him why. He said, because you have all these obstacles, all these problems and everything, and you still make money, you still make business. It's incredible. Okay, that would be number two. And I believe number three is to work on creating a legal and judicial system that really works and that can provide security. And this is your arena, Marco. You might have all the will from people and investors to come. You might even have the environment with the laws and everything. But if you don't have any legal security, you're not going to come here. Okay, you're not going to come here. Okay, so the government is tighten up your belt. Okay, allow entrepreneurs to flourish and create the legal system so that those businesses can really take off. That would be if I sit down with any government official, and this has been said by a lot of people. Okay, but those are my top three, and there's others after. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much, Darío, for your very insightful comments. Would anybody else on the panel like to add, or should we move forward?
I'd like to hear what NICOLAS has to say about it. Please, NICOLAS.
you got to go off mute, Nicolas.
I think that you said it very well, Darío. And if there's one term that I heard recently. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Well, Darío, I don't know if you heard me, but I wanted to also express my deep condolences for the passing of Don Carlos González Artigas. What a tremendous loss for all of the community, not just for MANABI or Ecuador. I had the pleasure of knowing other with Darío to try to set up some sort of food bank and do some sort of Manta, and all of a sudden this happened. So we're in shock a little bit over here. And Darío, I tell you how not only to you and your father, your family, he was another family member, not just your boss. So we really now going back to what I was here earlier, one of the comments what I've been hearing a lot here to describe the way new business or entrepreneurs are, it's bureaucratic terrorism. And that was very appropriate, bureaucratic, because trying to get a permit requires you to get another permit that you can't get. It's like you have the first permit, and the person who gives you the first permit doesn't want to give it to you because someone else. It's crazy. So putting some logic, some rationality into the journey. I know that lawyers make money on conflict, not resolution often, but it's too much. There's absolutely a lack of rational, logical business process intelligence in Ecuador's regulatory branches. So we're working really hard to get the president, number one, to get rid of these anticipatory taxes, to at least put a suspension on IVA, put a suspension of declaring your income tax, you know, trying to declare anticipated income taxes and paying anticipated income taxes, putting a suspension on payment of the IVA, you know, putting some relief so that the liquidity of the companies can be used to making payroll and not giving the government money that you can't use to pay your employees anymore. We also need to lift restrictions in the aduana, in customs. Marcos, you know how stupid and how crazy trying to get a container out of customs can be. I've suffered sending donation of medicine, at least the container, and all the medicine expired while it was being held inside a customs warehouse in Guayaquil. Insane. When you think of resources that we have, the abundance that Darío talks about, we should be the richest country because you stick your hand out and you get a fruit in your hand. I mean, we have so much wealth and so much prosperity that we don't take advantage of. So we're hoping that the government, outside of fiscal responsibility, like Darío says, they spend way too much. We have a bloated government. Outside of intellectual property and respecting other people's rights and judicial transparency and honesty in our judicial system, you know, we really need to work hard to get the government to get out of the way and allow the business sector to recover, generate wealth, prosperity, and try to get this recovery on the road as soon as possible. And by the way, Jason, I spent 22 years in the floral industry and I have investments in the flower industry, and we've lost about 82% of our business right now. So I can empathize with you. I'm very sorry about that.
Yeah, definitely. We're definitely feeling it across the industry. Well, thank you, Nicolas, for your insight as well. Let's move forward. Next question. I believe this is a Manta specific question. So all of us that live in Manta can tackle this. And if we have ideas in other areas of the country that we could offer up some assistance, we can do that as well. But the question is as follows. Are there any local fundraising or community groups where we as expats can donate money to help feed less fortunate families? And who or how is it being coordinated? And before we answer the question, I know, Nicolas, you spoke a little bit about food banks organized by the Ecuadorian American Chamber of Commerce. So maybe you could piggyback on what you spoke about previously and lead us off on this question.
Well, I wish I had a little bit better news, because we've been trying to set out a challenge. They've done it in Quito. They've done a really good job in Guayaquil with Yacaña, the food bank. You can check out .net. There are many ways that you can donate funds, and I don't know if some of you, probably most of you, are familiar with a store called TIA. Has set up a website where you can donate for $4.50. You can donate a kit that goes to a needy family here in Ecuador. And the good thing is that TIA had last mile delivery. You can also make deliveries to certain food banks like this Yacaña, and you can ask them to direct that delivery or donation toward MANABI. But a local food bank here in Manta, per se, set up by the private industry, is not operating yet. And the people who are doing the last mile delivery outside of the TIA stores is the prefecture of MANABI, is Leonardo Orlando. You just have to be careful with the politicization, part of it. We don't want to get into political parties and be supporting one guy or another. So getting that loud MANABI is still a challenge, Jason, that we're working to overcome.
Yeah, definitely. I think that makes sense. One thing that I wanted to add that I think, especially in this current pandemic, could be more effective is, a lot of our roles, day in and day out moving forward are to stay home, socially distance, protect our family, protect our loved ones, and try not to come in contact with other people to spread COVID-19. So I think one way to remedy this, or one way to be very helpful, would be a localized effort. So for example, if your neighbors, that they're in a dire situation or having difficulties, or are elderly and can't go out and shop as often as you can, again, like NICOLAS mentioned earlier, buy them a few key things at the market and deliver it directly to their doorstep. I think that would be one way that we as expats, we as Ecuadorian citizens, citizens of the world, can help mitigate this issue and make sure that we're doing our small bit to help people get through this. Okay, let's move forward with the next question.
Excuse me, I'd like to add something.
By all means.
All right, thank you. I wanted to talk about a local group here in Manta that is very active year-round, supporting needy families. Kids need food, medicine, whatever it takes. It's a local group that's called You and Us for Manta's Children. They currently have a fundraising going on. They're delivering food to needy families, really, really needy families. Kids who need medicines, young child that is epileptic, needed medicine. They took care of that. They're going out almost daily, bringing things to people all around the area here. They do a Christmas drive for kids. They do, about a week before Christmas, they took on a project in Montecristi with 100 needy kids that had no Christmas. They raised the money and donated toys and stuff for these kids. It's a great group, and it's You and Us from Manta's Children. Go to their page. They have a page, website, and a Facebook page. There's a donation spot there. You can email them anything you want to email. But they're good people doing good things here in Manta. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mark, for your contribution.
Welcome.
Okay, moving forward, we have a business specific question that anyone on the panel can tackle. We can tackle it as a group. So let's get right to it. All right. I'm in the hotel business on the coast of Ecuador, and my biggest issue for the next 6 months is cash flow. In order to carry my employees over the next 6 months while tourism is down. What is the Ecuadorian government doing to help companies to pay employees that have lost essentially 100% of their business in the tourism sector?
That's a very hard question. You can actually feel it because nobody jumped in to answer it right away. But I have to be straightforward. I thought, well, we do have a hotel at Montecristi Gold, which is actually closed right now. And we have that problem, same problem as the person that asked the question. I don't have an easy answer. Unfortunately, I don't have any promising answer. If that person can send me or send us his email or her email, I could probably share some information on what has happened in countries like China, and especially after didn't have we do. However, the length of time is between 3 to 10 months to achieve the rate that you were actually charging before and the occupancy percentage. Okay, so it's a very slow recovery. I was talking to an expert that does this for a living, and he told me that there were like about 300 million people that worked in the hotel industry all over the world. And he mentioned that probably 75 million out of those 300 million are going to be laid off, out of work in the world. So I was talking to, I can't say the name of the local hotel chain here in Ecuador, but they were also thinking about reducing at least 1/3 of their employees. Hopefully, if they belong to an economic group, they can transfer those people to do something else. We have the waiters and waitresses at Montecristi and the bellboys working right now, you know, putting masking tape on detergent boxes a la Fabril. Okay, so that's what we're doing. See, but probably this person that put this question on this panel doesn't have the luxury because he only has that one business. There's no easy answer, honestly. And then again, my suggestion is I can share the information so you might get something out of that information to try to innovate and adapt. Okay, maybe instead of thinking about lodging people, you think about feeding people. I don't know. There might be an opportunity to have some those beds ready to host are sick. Adapt. That's my suggestion. Adapt.
Yeah. Jason, what if we go with 2 more questions, because I know everyone here is very busy. So let's finish with 2 more questions, and at the end we will be replying the questions that they were not answered. Also, I will be talking to the panelists because I will be asking some information, like for example that information that you said, Dario, how we can handle that. We can help to send that information over, and also the group Manta helping here, Mark, and also it will be good that as a group, some people, like, because the Chamber of Commerce is an entity here in MANABI, well established, so you probably want to get in contact with them, and because they're always sharing some important information, so that you business owners, you want to know what is happening. Personally, I'm part of the Chamber of Commerce. That's why the president of the Chamber of Commerce in Ecuadorian American Chamber of Commerce is here. And there are a few times where I have been receiving information from firsthand in these groups. So we will be sending that information as well for everyone who might be interested in getting affiliated to the Chamber of Commerce here in MANABI. So Jason, let's finish with the, Dario, you have something to say.
Just very quickly, a friend of mine that works, is very involved in the tourism sector. His name is Patricio Tamariz from Bahia. He just texted me. He said, we're working with FENACAPTUR, which is the Federation of a Chamber of Tourism in the country, into very alternatives for the reactivation. There are some specific proposals that they are hoping that they can have some feasibility. They were talking yesterday with the Ministry of Tourism. So I'm going to talk to Patricio, and when I get this information, I'm going to share it to you. Then again, Jason, if you can ask this person that raised the question to provide his or her email so that we can share this information, we can actually be of service. Okay? Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, let's move forward. I think we have one more question here. 1 second, please. Okay, so one of the attendees would like to know, I suppose they heard this maybe via social media or some different medium, but did the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, recently give Ecuador an amount of money to help with battling COVID-19 in Ecuador? Can anybody speak to that?
I believe it was a $500 million award that was given to them for that purpose.
Okay, fantastic. Every penny helps.
Every penny will help, for sure.
All right, moving forward, I think there were a few other questions regarding information about the Ecuadorian American Chamber of Commerce, which I believe we're going to provide some information after today's seminar. There was some information we're going to provide via email to the gentleman asking about the hotel industry. So I think we're fairly covered. I'll turn it back to Marcos if he wants to add any closing remarks. And again, thank you everybody for participating.
All right, well, thank you, Jason. I want to thank all of you, Nicolas, Darío, Mark, Jason, for being here. I know you are very busy and sharing your view, your perspective, your opinion about what is happening. It is a challenge right now that we're facing, but as a country, I'm sure that we will do a good job. So thank you again. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice afternoon.
You too. Thank you.
Great afternoon to all of you.
Take care. Same to you.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you, guys.